think that's really important. So, if that's the way we're trying to live as catechists, if that's the way we're trying to help each other live in our parish, right? How do we do that, right? How do we make the way in which we live our faith attractive? So on the fifth bullet point with some subpoints there, again quoting from the RCIA, during this period, priests and deacons, catechists, and other lay people are to give the candidates a suitable explanation of the gospel. When we have the opportunity to talk to people at greater length, which we sometimes do, and sometimes by starting the conversation, sometimes somebody else starts the conversation and we respond to it. Right? Our goal there is to present the gospel. We're inviting them to a conversion. As Sister said, right, we're presenting the person of Christ when we present the gospel. It's not just an idea, but it's a real person. It's a person that we love, and it's a person that we know loves us, and we want to share that with other people. And I think one of the most important aspects of that, and Louis has already said this, is that enthusiasm that we have, right? The joy that our faith is supposed to give us. Right? Now, one layer of joy is simply happiness, and no one is going to be happy all the time. Everybody has bad days. Everybody has stuff going on. Right? We're not in control. Right? We were talking at lunch about the illusion of control. We're not always going to be happy. Joy is not an emotion, right? Although it often includes the emotion of happiness. It doesn't always include the emotion of happiness. And it doesn't need to. Right? Think about the martyrs. Think about the martyrs who were happy to die for Christ. Not happy to die, but happy to die for Christ. Right? That's the difference between joy and happiness. Right? So even while they were being killed, sometimes horribly, right? Certainly not a happy experience to be killed, right? But even while they were being killed, right, they were able to cling to that joy of the faith, right? That knowledge, right, that in that love for Christ and love from Christ, there is something that is utterly different than anything else we're going to find anywhere else in the world, right? and utterly compelling, that's worth giving ourselves, even at the cost of our own life sometimes. Now again, most of us are not going to be called to that kind of death. God willing, none of us are going to be called to that kind of death. But it does happen. It does happen. In the world today, mostly not in the United States, mostly not in Europe, but in places like China and Vietnam and Africa, there are Christian martyrs. There are Catholic martyrs, right, even today. So there have always been martyrs in the church, and one of the reasons is the way in which martyrs prove the joy that the faith is supposed to bring with it. Most of the time, we spend our lives stuck in the details. And we're not really paying attention to those deeper levels, that profound intimacy of that relationship. And most of the time when we're not paying attention to that, the consequences of not paying attention to it are fairly small. Right? Because the details change, but the main situation doesn't. Right? But martyrdom is one of those kinds of things, right, that forces you to, forces you to look, right, all the way down to the very bottom, at the very foundations of whatever kind of relationship we have with God. And are those foundations strong enough to be able to hold on to that joy, to be able to say yes, even at the cost of our own life? Or are those foundations going to crack under that pressure, right, and leave us, to abandon the faith and hold on to our own life? Right? Most of us never face that question in a personal and immediate kind of way. Right? But the example of the martyrs challenges us, right, to strive for a deeper sense of that relationship that Sister Joanna was talking about. Right? Remembering in our catechesis that what we are preaching, right, is the person of Christ, and that should bring a smile to our face. And that's true. Right? That should bring a smile to our face.